Hello everyone, welcome to Prelims Warm Up. This initiative has been brought to you by Aptitude Academy for Civil Services, and my name is Shaikh Datta. I'm the faculty for Geography and Environment at Aptitude Academy for Civil Services. So in this initiative, we are looking at 5 questions every day, which have been asked in the previous year UPSC Prelims examination. So let us look at the first question for today. The first question that we have has been taken from the UPSC Prelims examination of 2018. The first question is asking, despite being a high saving economy, the capital formation may not result in significant increase in output due to A. Weak administrative machinery, B. Illiteracy, C. High population density, and D. High capital to output ratio. Once again, despite being a high saving economy, capital formation may not result in significant increase in output due to A. Weak administrative machinery, B. Illiteracy, C. High population density, and D. High capital to output ratio. So let us look at the answer for this. So 1B is the right answer, that is high capital to output ratio. What does that imply? Let us understand. Capital formation, it means increasing the stock of real capital in a country. In other words, capital formation involves making of more capital goods such as machines, tools, factories, transport equipments, materials, electricity, etc., which are all used for future production of goods. Okay, so capital formation, what does it mean? It means increasing the stock of real capital in a country. In other words, capital formation involves the making of more capital goods such as machines, tools, factories, transport equipments, materials, electricity, etc., which are all used for future production of goods. Now, for making additions to the stock of capital, saving and investment are essential. Capital output ratio is the amount of capital needed to produce 1 unit of output. Remember this, what is meant by capital output ratio? It is the amount of capital needed to produce 1 unit of output. For example, suppose the investment in an economy, investment is around 32% of GDP, and the capital growth corresponding to this level of investment is 8%. Here, a rupees 32 investment produces an output of rupees 8. This is what is called as capital output ratio. So capital output ratio is 32 by 8 because you have to invest 32 rupees to get an output of 8 rupees. So capital to output ratio is 32 by 8, or you can say 4. Okay, in other words, to produce 1 unit of output, 4 units of capital is needed. Okay, and hence if capital to output ratio is high, there will not be a significant increase in output despite of high saving and investment. So you can understand in an economy, if the capital to output ratio is very high, which will mean that you need much more investment of capital in order to get a desired level of output. Okay, so because if like in case of India, though it is a high saving economy, but because of various structural defects, we get to see our capital to output ratio is very high, and because of that, what happens, even if there is a huge amount of saving and if there's a lot of capital formation which is taking place, despite of that, you might get to see that the output, that is the resultant output, might not be very high. Okay, so this is what it means. Okay, 4 units of capital. Hence, if the capital output ratio is very high, there will not be significant increase in output despite of having high savings and investment. So that is your first question, and answer is B. Second question again was taken from 2018 prelims. It is from Modern India History. After the Santhal uprising subsided, what was or were the measure or measures taken by the colonial government? So once the Santhal uprising was subsided, what were the measures which were taken by the colonial government? Number 1, the territories called Santhal Parganas were created. Number 2, it became illegal for a Santhal to transfer land to a non-Santhal. Okay? What is Santhal? It's a tribal group. So the territories which were called as Santhal Parganas, now you'll get to see that certain parts of West Bengal, Jharkhand, these areas are called as Santhal Parganas. So the territories which are called as Santhal Parganas were created and became illegal for a Santhal to transfer land to a non-Santhal. So what is the right answer? 2C is the right answer. That is, both of the statements are correct. Okay, 2C is the right answer. So let us have a look at C. The first statement, It was after the Santhal revolt of 1855 to 56. So when did the Santhal revolt take place? Around 1855 to 56, that the Santhal Parganas were created. How much? By carving out almost 5,500 square miles from the districts of Bhagalpur and Birbhum. The colonial state hoped that by creating a new territory for the Santhals and imposing some special laws within it, the Santhals could be conciliated. The Santhals were unhappy because you had a lot of foreigners coming into their territory, and as a result of which we get to see that there were certain revolts which took place. So after the revolt had got subsided, after things had got cooled down, then the Britishers they decided that a particular part of the country should be kept inviolate for the Santhal tribes only, and that is where we get to see the Santhal Parganas came into the picture after 1855-56, and almost 5,500 square miles of area were taken out from the districts of Bhagalpur as well as Birbhum, and this particular area was called as the Santhal Parganas, where some special laws were imposed. Okay? And through this, the British tried to pacify the Santhals. The second statement is also correct. So what also happened is that after the Santhal revolt had subsided, to protect the economic basis of Santhal society, special regulations governed transfer of land, and it became illegal for a Santhal to transfer land to a non-Santhal. So all these were the measures which were taken after the Santhal uprising of 1855 to 56. So both the statements are correct. Now moving on to question number 3. And this was also taken from UPSC Prelims 2018. The question is asking, and it is from economics. Economically, one of the result of the British rule in India in the 19th century was. So what was one of the major result, or one of the result of the British rule in India in the 19th century? This is from the economic part of modern India history. A increase in the export of Indian handicrafts. So one of the result of the British rule in India in the 19th century was A, increase in the export of Indian handicrafts. B, increase in the number of India-owned factories. C, commercialization of Indian agriculture, and D, rapid increase in the urban population. So one of the result of the British rule in India in the 19th century was A, increase in the export of Indian handicrafts. B, growth in the number of Indian-owned factories. C, commercialization of Indian agriculture, and D, rapid increase in the urban population. So here we get to see the answer is C. What was C? Option C was commercialization of Indian agriculture. Okay, commercialization of Indian agriculture. Let's try to understand. Here we are looking at the economic impact of the British rule. The number one impact was deindustrialization. What does that mean? Okay, it led to the ruin of artisans and handicraftsmen because we had cheap and machine-made goods which were importing India, and they flooded the Indian market after the Charter Act of 1813, which allowed one-way free trade for British citizens. On the other hand, we also get to see Indian products, they found it more and more difficult to penetrate the European markets. And after 1830, European markets, they were virtually closed to Indian exports. Okay. Even the newly introduced rail network, it helped the European products to reach the remotest parts or remotest corners of the country. Hence, option A is not correct. Option A was what? That is increase in the export of Indian handicrafts, and that was one of the result of the British rule in India in the 19th century. Increase in the export of Indian handicrafts, that is incorrect, because right now we saw that European markets were virtually close to Indian exports, and the European products that were able to reach the remotest parts of the country because of the newly introduced railway network. And another feature of deindustrialization was the decline of many cities and the process of ruralization of India. So that was another thing which took place alongside deindustrialization. Next, many artisans, they faced with diminishing returns and repressive policies of the company, abandoned their professions and moved to villages and to agriculture. This happened with many of the people of the company. So many artisans, it happened with many of the Indian people. Many artisans, they faced with the diminishing returns and repressive policies of the company, they abandoned their professions and moved to the villages and to agriculture. This resulted in increased pressure on land because now more and more people were moving onto the land, onto the rural areas. This was creating much higher pressure on the land. An overburdened agriculture sector was a major cause of poverty. Overburdened agriculture sector was okay, here it has got repeated, but anyway, only once you should know. Okay, the major cause of poverty was the overburdened agricultural sector during the British rule, and this upset the village economic setup. Okay, apart from that, we also get to see impoverishment of peasantry. That was another effect of or another economic impact of India that we get to see. The impoverishment of peasantry had taken place. So what is this? The government was only interested in maximization of rents in securing its share of revenue. It had enforced the permanent settlement in large parts. Okay, to ensure that max to max rents should be obtained from the farmers, plus to secure its share of revenue. The peasants they had so we get to see the government they had enforced the permanent settlement in large parts of India. The transferability of land was one feature of the new settlement which caused great insecurity with the peasants who lost all their traditional rights in land. So development of wooden industries the development of modern industries, it was only in the second half of the 19th century that modern machine-based industries started coming up in India. The first cotton textile mill it was started in 1853 in Bombay by Kausji Nanabhoy, and the first jute mill it came up in 1855 at Rishra in Bengal. But most of the industries were foreign owned and controlled by British managing agencies. So over here, growth in the number of Indian owned factories. So that is to some extent incorrect because we get to see most of the industries they were foreign owned and controlled by British managing agencies. Okay. Okay. The last one, commercialization of Indian agriculture. Yes, that is correct. In the later half of the 19th century, another significant trend was the emergence of commercialization of agriculture. This was another phenomena which was seen in the second half or the later half of the 19th century. Another significant trend was the emergence of the commercialization of agriculture. Now, what happened? Agriculture began to be influenced by commercial considerations. No longer was it only for self-consumption, but slowly it started considering commercial considerations as well. Certain specialized crops began to be grown for consumption in the village, or began to be grown not for consumption in the village, but for sale in the national or even international markets. You can understand from here this concept of commercialization of agriculture, it compelled the farmers to grow only those crops which have a lot of value in the market. So certain specialized crops began to be grown not for consumption in the village but for sale in the national and even the international markets. Commercial crops like cotton, jute, groundnut, oil seeds, sugarcane, tobacco, etc., were more remunerative than sugar canes, than food grains. So this is the start of commercialization of Indian agriculture. So we get to see that the last statement was so rapid increase in the urban population. That was not one of the important outcomes. On the other hand, commercialization of Indian agriculture, that was definitely one of the major milestones. This is so far as question number 3 is concerned. Moving on to the next question, that is question number 4. So this question is from Polity and also taken from UPSC Prelims 2018 paper. The question is asking if the President of India exercises his power as provided under Article 356 of the Constitution of a particular state, then A. The Assembly of the state is automatically dissolved. B. The powers of the legislature of that state shall be exercisable by or under the authority of the Parliament. C. Article 19 is suspended in that state, and D. The President can make laws relating to that state. Okay, so if the President of India exercises his power as provided under Article 356 of the Constitution of a particular state, then A. The Assembly of the state is automatically dissolved. B. All the powers of the legislature of that state shall be exercisable by or under the authority of the Parliament. C. Article 19 is suspended in that state, and D. The President can make laws relating to that state. So let us see the answer for this. Answer is B. So the answer for this is B, that if the President of India exercises his power as provided under Article 356 of the Constitution of a particular state, then the power of the legislature of that state shall be exercisable by or under the authority of the Parliament. So let us see over here. The President acquires the following extraordinary powers when the President's rule is imposed in a state. Okay? He acquires some extra powers when the President's rule is imposed in a state. For example, number one, he can take up the functions of the state government and the powers vested in the governor or any other executive authority in the state. So, what are the things that can happen if the President acquires the following extraordinary powers during President's rule which has been imposed in a state? Number one, he can take up the functions of the state government and powers vested in the governor or any other executive authority in the state. Number two, he can declare that the powers of the state legislature are to be exercised by the Parliament. Okay, he can declare that the powers of the state legislature are to be exercised by the Parliament. So number three, he can take all the necessary steps, including the suspension of the constitutional provisions relating to anybody or any authority in the state. So the President, if he acquires the extraordinary powers when the President rule is imposed in the state, then number one, he can take up the functions of the state government and powers vested in the governor or any other executive authority in the state. Number two, he can declare that the powers of the state legislature are to be exercised by the Parliament. Number three, he can take all other necessary steps, including the suspension of the constitutional provision and relating to anybody or authority in the state. Next, the state governor, on behalf of the President, carries on the state administration with the help of the chief secretary of the state or the advisors appointed by the President. Okay. The state governor on behalf of the President carries on the state administration with the help of the chief secretary of the state or the advisors appointed by the President. Further, the President either suspends or dissolves the state legislative assembly. The President either suspends or dissolves the state legislative assembly, and the Parliament passes the state legislative bills and state target and state budget. Okay, so the answer is B over here, that the powers of the legislature of that state shall be exercisable by or under the authority of the Parliament. Now, finally, moving on to the last question for the day, and here we have a question from Art and Culture, where you have been provided with two columns. In one column you have the craft, and in the other column you have to see which state does this particular craft belong to. Number one is Puthukuli shawls in Tamil Nadu. Number two, Sujni embroidery in Maharashtra. Okay, Puthukuli shawls in Tamil Nadu. Second is Sujni embroidery in Maharashtra. Third is Upada Jamdani saris in Karnataka. And we have to select which is correct out of these. So question number 5, the right answer is A. That is one only. So out of the given options, that is Puthukuli shawls, it ideally should be in Tamil Nadu. Sujni embroidery, it is not in Maharashtra. And similarly, if you look at the Upada Jamdani saris, that is also not in Karnataka. But why? Let us have a look. Pair 1 is correctly matched. That is, in case of the Tora tribe of South America, they do intricate Puthukuli works on cream colored shawls. The colors are always red and black, and the shawl can be worn on both sides. Okay. So the Tora tribe of Tamil Nadu, they do intricate Puthukuli work on cream colored shawls. The colors are always red and black, and the shawl can be used on both the sides. So this is so far as the Puthukuli shawls are concerned, and it is found, or it is a heritage of Tamil Nadu. Next we have talked about the Sujni embroidery of Maharashtra. So Sujani, also called as Sujni, it is a form of embroidery which originates from the Gusura village of Bihar in India. So over here, if you see the Sujni embroidery, it was mapped to Maharashtra, but that is incorrect, because here we get to see that Sujani, also called as Sujni, it is a form of embroidery originating from the Gusura village of Bihar. So please remember, Sujni or Sujni, it is a type of embroidery. It is a type of embroidery which originates from the Busuda village of Bihar. Over here, it was given as Maharashtra, so that is incorrect. Acha. The pair 3 is also not correctly matched. That is Upada Jamdani saris. There are diaphanous silk sari that traces its origin to Upada in Andhra Pradesh. Jamdani itself is a hand woven fabric that is also known as Muslim. So once again, let us have a look at this Upada Jamdani saris which have been mapped to Karnataka. So we get to see this pair is not correctly matched. Okay, Upada Jamdani saris are diaphanous silk sari that trace its origin to Upada in Andhra Pradesh. So it cannot be Karnataka, but rather it is in Andhra Pradesh. It's Upada Jamdani saris are diaphanous silk sari that trace its origin to Upada Andrahali. That traces origin to Upada in Andhra Pradesh. Jamdani itself is a hand woven fabric that is also called as Muslim. Okay. So when it comes to Upada Jamdani saris, ideally it should be Andhra Pradesh. And here I think it was given as Karnataka. So these are incorrect. So Kuthukuli shawls, Tamil Nadu, that's fine. When it comes to Sujni embroidery, it is from the Busuda village of Bihar. And finally, if we talk about the Upada Jamdani sari, then Upada Jamdani saris, they are native to Andhra Pradesh. So we have to be aware about these terms, these art and culture, which usually occurs in the news. So with this, we complete the 5 questions for the today's session, and I hope you have liked it. Please like video and also please comment in the comment section. Also, please subscribe to AptitudePlus Academy for Civil Services YouTube channel for more such informative videos. And till then, please stay safe and take care. Thank you so much.